Coming to paperback and e-readers, E-Steam Cancel Vacation. Hell's aspiring angel takes on a social justice social media mob looking to cancel her in this all-new E-Steam series adventure. Pre-order E-Steam Cancel Vacation on Amazon.com today. Yesterday, Tim Drake, the third Robin, was retconned into a bisexual character. And I say that the character has been retconned into a bisexual character because nowhere in the character's 32-year history has the character ever been presented as bisexual. Now, the big problem with this Tim Drake revelation isn't about the character. No, the big problem with Tim Drake's revelation has to do with extremely incompetent editorial. Now, your Daniel Cherry, who's supposed to be running DC Comics right now, is not doing the job that a good editor-in-chief does, and his editorial department is not doing the job an effective editorial team does. Now, the editor's job is to make sure that the characters remain consistent from writer to writer. And in this case, we have a young female rookie writer who decided on her own accord to change Tim Drake's sexual orientation. And that was something that editorial should have gone out here and let this writer know that she was completely out of line. Unfortunately, because there are no editors at DC Comics or Marvel Comics to establish standards for their characters, we got this revelation, which was something that really upset a lot of longtime comic fans because they knew this character and they knew this character's history, and it really angered a lot of comic fans to see this character's sexual orientation changed arbitrarily by a writer who was not reined in by editorial, because it is the editor's job to make sure that the characters meet the standards that were established by the original creators and also be consistent with their character actions from writer to writer. But in this case, we had a writer who was given too much power, and that's one of the big problems with the comic book industry now. We do not have strict editorial to rein in creator excesses and prevent them from doing long-term damage. Now, there is a place for a bisexual character, but when it is poorly executed like this, it winds up upsetting comic fans because you're going out here and trying to gaslight readers into believing that there is something different about a character, even though they have sat there and read this character for 32 years. Now, the Tim Drake character has always been a heterosexual character, and he has always been shown in relationships with women, starting out with Ariana Dershenko in the early part of his Robin career in the, I believe, the Robin 2 miniseries, and he was shown being heterosexual in a heterosexual long-term relationship with Stephanie Brown. Now, they also say Tim Drake was involved with Cassie Sandsmark, the Wonder Girl, and he was also involved with Jubilee in the Marvel vs. DC storyline. And he also, in Cry of the Huntress Robin 3, pined for Helena Bertinelli. So there's a long-term history of Tim Drake being a heterosexual character. However, this writer going in with some group of comic fans who saw the friendship between Connor Kent, Superboy, and Tim Drake Robin and tried to project homosexuality onto it, wanted to go out here and try to make the Tim Drake character into what she thought the character was, instead of trying to maintain the integrity of the character. And when she tried to have it where Tim Drake was retconned into a bisexual character, she executed the whole concept extremely poorly. Now, this writer decided to arbitrarily end a relationship with Stephanie Brown. Spoiler that Tim Drake was in multiple issues of DC Comics off panel in order for her to go out here and push her ideas onto the character. And again, this is not only lazy writing, this is bad writing. And as a writer with over 25 years of experience, it's something that if I were running DC Comics, I would not allow to go out because it just does not fit consistently with the character, and it would wind up alienating a lot of customers. Now, some people are seeing this as something as related to social justice and identity politics and virtue signaling, and possibly there are some elements of virtue signaling here. But as a creator who goes out here and has written gay characters and written alphabet characters, I know that this was just bad writing and poor execution, very similar to what I saw happen back in 1995 with the Tony Stark character when they made him a pawn of Kang and tried to retcon him to say that he was this pawn of Kang from day one, and then they wanted to kill Tony Stark in the storyline called The Crossing and then replace him with a teen Iron Man. And this whole storyline also reflects other poorly executed revelations of sexual orientation, like Selena Kyle and Diana Prince being revealed to be bisexual. And then after these revelations were made, what happened was these characters never mentioned this ever again, because the writers who came after that writer never wanted to touch that story point. Very similar to what writers did to Tony Stark after Heroes Reborn. They never touched the whole Pawn of Kang Crossing storyline ever again. And I believe the same thing is going to happen to Tim Drake in this case. Another writer is going to get a hold of this character, and this story point will never be referenced again because it just does not fit consistently with the character. But the big problem here is not the Tim Drake character. No, the big problem is DC's editorial department, and the editorial department not having the nuts or the backbone to go out here and check a writer and let them know that they work for DC Comics, and if they are working for DC Comics, then they have to maintain the standards that are established for these characters, and they have to maintain the integrity of these characters. That is what an editor's job is. Their job is to, again, rein in creator excesses and prevent them from doing damage to a character's history and doing damage to a character's brand. Unfortunately, we don't really have really good editorial in the comic book industry anymore, and because we don't have good editorial like a Jim Shooter, who would have definitely pulled this writer's chain and let them know that either you write Tim Drake the way he has been reflected in history, or you can go out here and kick rocks. That is what an editor's job is. An editor's job is to be the eyes and ears of the reader and convey what the readers would represent to many of these writers and creators, to let them know that when you are working on a commercial character, there are standards that have to be followed, and you cannot come in here with your own ideas from whatever fan fiction that you have or whatever ideas you see on places like Twitter and Tumblr. No, you have to follow certain standards that were established by people like your Chuck Dixon, your Neil Adams, who designed Robin's costume, and many other writers who have worked on this character. It is all about maintaining the integrity of that character. Now, if this writer wanted to go out here and make a splash, she could have done what Judd Winnick did on his run of Kyle Rayner Green Lantern. Now, on Kyle Rayner Green Lantern, Judd Winnick went out here and he introduced a homosexual character, and he went out here and had a major storyline that dealt with homophobia. And it was in a very exceptionally well done storyline. that allowed us to see the alphabet community in a positive light, and it really did a great job of showing us that DC was all about actual organic diversity. And if this writer really had some sort of talent and skill, they would have been about introducing that alphabet bisexual character into this story and not trying to make it where the Tim Drake character is the one coming out to go out on a date with him. No, they would have been able to introduce this character and allowed them to go out here and be a organic part of the DC universe, the same way Maggie Sawyer was a part organically of the DC universe ever since the late 80s, and the same way that Obsidian was a part of the DC universe since the mid-80s, because people don't have a problem with alphabet characters, they have a problem with poorly forced and shoehorned characters. Even members of the gay community have a serious problem with this type of shoehorning and virtue signaling, because to them this is not organic representation like we got with Maggie Sawyer, like we got with Obsidian, like we got with many other characters like Batwoman. Organic representation is all about showing us real, true diversity, and we've had that in the DC universe ever since the mid-80s. I mean, I've been reading DC comics with alphabet characters for years, and there is no need to go out here and talk about making these announcements of these characters so-called coming out, because this type of virtue signaling, all it does is it may get you some articles in places like the Hollywood Reporter and many of these websites that go out here and get clicks, but it does not go out here and generate sales, because many of the people you're trying to appeal to feel like they're being pandered to. And when you go out here and pander to the customer, you are coming to the customer from a position of weakness. And when you come to the customer from a position of weakness, you are saying that what you're doing has no real value, because you're coming from a place where you don't have confidence in yourself, you don't believe in what you're doing. And this revelation of Tim Drake being a bisexual character after having an over 32-year history of being heterosexual, it just does not come across as genuine, because there was no organic build as related to it over the course of multiple issues, and there was no organic build as related to this development of the character. So this whole revelation, it just does not feel genuine to many readers, and again, it just turns readers off. And people, I thought DC Comics was turning a corner, because they were producing fantastic books like Nightwing, The Flash, and many other titles that have been really picking up solid momentum. But it's this type of social justice pandering that winds up alienating lots of readers and making them think twice before picking up a DC comic. So as I see it, DC's editorial really needs to have a sit down with this writer, and they need to let this writer know that if you're gonna work on our comics, you have to follow certain standards. And you also, if you want to go out here and you want to introduce a bisexual character, then introduce a bisexual character organically, the way Judd Winnick went out here and did it, the way I believe John Byrne did it with Maggie Sawyer. I don't know if he created Maggie Sawyer. And do it the same way many of these creators do, because if you do it organically, you can go out here and make that character who will be a hit. But when you go out here and make these kind of revelations, what it does is it doesn't feel genuine. It feels like you're trying to go out here and piggyback on a popular character in order to try to make a name for yourself. And what it does is it dilutes whatever impact you had, because once this writer finishes their run, another writer is going to come in and practically forget everything that has been done as related to your revelation, because notice, nobody ever talks about Wonder Woman being bisexual anymore. Nobody talks about Catwoman being bisexual, and nobody ever talks about other eras of concepts like the Teen Iron Man or the Diana Prince Wonder Woman. Those whole revelations wound up becoming forgotten, and it's all due to the fact that the readers don't want to go out here and buy those comics, and many of those readers don't want to go out here and remember those comics. Now, this is again, as something as I see it, as related to editorial needing to go out here and have a backbone and go out here and let these rookie writers know that if they want to work on these characters, they have to follow certain rules. And they say this woman was a comic fan, but if she truly was a comic fan, she would go out here and understand that this is not a place for you to go out here and project your ideas onto the character. It is your job to go out here and give the readers a quality story and go out here and present this in a way that appeals to the reader. Now, this revelation, as I see it, it is not really, it really is a major editorial issue, because if this was supposed to be consistent, you would think it would have been revealed in DC's Pride issue, where they could have gotten the biggest sales, but this writer was going on her own, and again, that's a sign of truly bad editorial, and DC Comics really needs to have its editorial department really come in here and let this writer know she just cannot arbitrarily change characters, because that does damage to the character's brand, and it prevents the character from being able to go out here and sell to the reader, because the readers were extremely angry and frustrated, because again, many people read this character for over 32 years. They saw him in numerous relationships with women, but this writer decides to go out here and do this without any sort of editorial reign, and it's just something that is just not something a professional writer does. No, a professional writer, they understand that if you want to go out here and you want to go out here and tackle LGBTQ issues, you go out here and you create an organic character, then you go out here and tackle those issues the way Judd Winnick did with Green Lantern, and the way the creators of The Authority did with Apollo and Midnighter, and the same way that the writers of Batwoman have tackled this. They tackled it in a constructive manner using organic characters, and they didn't go out here and try to shoehorn a identity onto a character where it didn't fit, because they wanted to go out here and they wanted to make a statement with their stories, and they wanted their stories to resonate with the reader. That's the main reason why they would go out here and tackle those type of stories, because they wanted the stories to have substance and not flash. And I would like to see the comic book industry get away from these types of shock revelations, because they're hurting the business, and they're making it where many comic fans are just get alienated and not want to pick up comics like the ones that make these kind of revelations, because this type of revelation, again, it's just meant for shock value, but it doesn't really go out here and sell lots of comics. All it does is lead to readers walking away from a character and walking away from a series of characters like those in the Batman family. Now, this video is not going to be monetized due to YouTube's policies, so if you could donate to the Cash App, it would be greatly appreciated. And if you want to pick up some of my stories featuring positive images of black men and women, like the ISIS series, the E-Steam series, the John Haynes series, and the books of the Spinsterella trilogy, you can find all those books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find them on Smashwords, the iBook Store, and Google Play. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and e-readers, ISIS, Samurai Goddess. The Goddess Next Door takes on Kung Fu killers in this action-packed martial arts ISIS series adventure. Get ISIS Samurai Goddess in paperback and e-readers today.